Okay, how's it going, guys? This is the first ever Rig Talk. I'm joined here by the great Paul.
How are you doing?
Fellow drone pilot, fellow nomad. Tell us about yourself.
My name's Paul Karen. I'm from Georgia. My wife and I live on the road in this FJ Cruiser and pretty much camp out of it 90% of the time. We get a hotel once a week or so.
Yeah, once in a blue moon.
But yeah, we do cell phone tower inspection. I started that two and a half years ago. And now that our kids are grown and married or moved out of the house, my wife came out on the road with me, and for the last year she's been on the road doing half the work while I fly the drone, and we can get more done in a single day. So it's been fun. I've enjoyed living out, roaming around from state to state. We get home every few weeks, and we unpack and pack some new things for the winter or for whatever season we're going into, or we may even leave the FJ at an airport, fly back home to see one of the kids' graduations or something important, then fly back out and finish our work. So we've been living on the road.
And how many kids you got?
5.
5 kids.
So the youngest is 19. He's going to school online college, and working full-time, so he keeps up with the house while we're gone. And then the other kids are out in Idaho at school, and we've got 2 kids that are married out in Utah and Idaho.
Damn.
Yep.
So you're a bit of everywhere.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
Awesome.
It's been nice because we just had our first grandkid, and we were able to drop everything. We were in Wyoming somewhere. Drop everything and drive out there overnight to be there to house sit while my son took his wife to the hospital to have the baby. So we were there when the baby was born. That was really cool to be able
That's
to have
amazing.
flexibility to drop everything and just head out. We just called, said, hey, we're going to leave everything the way it is. We'll be gone for a few days, and yeah.
So what kind of prompted you to want to join in on this kind of lifestyle? I mean, I would call it a job, but at this point it's a lifestyle.
It pretty much is a lifestyle, because I can't recommend it to everybody. You have to be a special kind of strange to do, not strange, but okay with the different kind of inconveniences that we do. I've done a lot of contract work by myself, weekend work, where I've been a manager as a jeweler for 15 years, 20 years, and done management, middle management for years and years. And then on the side, I got into drones and started doing commercial real estate for these big warehouses. And from that, I just got a phone call one day and saying, hey, would you like to inspect cell phone towers? I had seen it in a YouTube video before and thought, sure. And the numbers they were giving me were like too good to be true. So I took that down to about half and said, could we survive on half of what they're projecting we could get done in a day? And we thought, yeah, we could do it. So I still did not trust that it was not too good to be true. We had just sold a house. We had some extra cash, so we bought the few $1,000s worth of cameras and equipment that we didn't already have, and we tried it out, and it worked immediately. Tara went to training with me, and it was good to have a second ears and eyes on what the training was about, so we could remember what needed to be done. And she went with me for the first couple of weeks, and after that she stayed home with our youngest son while he was still finishing up high school, and I went out on the road and did this. And it's right up my alley. I am wired to where I'm a borderline workaholic. Even though you're paying me hourly, I will do as much as I possibly can. I'm just wired that way. And this works out well, that I get paid for exactly how much money, how much work I get accomplished. And so I will work from before sun up to just as the sun is setting, and we still have work to do after the fact. It's kind of a game to me. It's all a big game. So I just work to see how many I can get done.
Yeah, we do a lot of strategizing in terms of like location planning, situation, especially on some of the stuff that we work on. Without going into too much detail about what we work on, just for...
But strategizing is a good way to put it. If you miscalculate where you should be at sunrise, you get one job done, and then you have a 5-hour drive. And so, yeah, we try to strategize and sort out the logistics of where we can get the most done in a day.
Agreed. Agreed. So, what was your day one like? And was it like hectic or was it hell?
It was.
And what made you want to stay on board? Besides the fact that, you know, you invested such and
It's
such onto it.
stressful, and then when you bring a spouse on immediately and she heard something different and you think it's supposed to be this way, you both saw the same thing, there can be some disagreements, and you have to. Tara and I get along really well, and we know how to disagree without biting each other's head off. But even then, I'm always rush, 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 and I put too much pressure on her. She got so aggravated at me one time, she threw and this is day number 3, she threw the laptop on the dashboard. It slid across the dashboard and hit the windshield and spidered the whole windshield.
Oh.
I was so mad. I just like, had to bite my lip because I'm like, anything I say right now is going to cause a divorce. And so we were so mad. I had hurt her feelings so bad, and we pulled around. She said, I need to go to the restroom. She got out and started walking towards the rest area. I felt bad. I turned off the vehicle, ran out there and gave her a hug. I'm sorry. You know, whoever's fault it was. We were both at fault, but we worked it out. It was really stressful getting going, being on the road like this. I am more of a natural nomad, I'm not really attached to material things as much, or at least my home base. I know it's there, but I enjoy driving. I enjoy roaming around. And Tara does too. She enjoys finding new things. But I'm wired to where I can stick with the monotony of the same old thing day after day after day for years. That's just how I'm wired, and she wants to do something new all the time. So that's the only thing that's been, do we still have to do this? Yeah.
How do you kind of balance your work life with just honestly just living? Because when you're going around all these, you know, amazing places, horrible places, plenty of them, what kind of balance do you kind of strike? Like,
I don't have much of a
work,
balance. My balance is Tara going, we need to take a break. Let's go look at this. And I'll have to switch off and just say, screw it. We're not going to make any money for today or the next 2 days. Let's just go enjoy the weekend. Mostly what gives me balance is the work is not there. They say, hey, we don't have any work for the next 2 or 3 days, and we have to hold up in a city, and hopefully we're in a cool town that we can look around and go to a tour or a museum or rent a bike and tour around. But other than that, like I said, I'm a workaholic, so I enjoy getting things accomplished more than I do taking time off.
Yeah, I too have a problem with like taking time off as well.
The sad thing
in terms
is,
of like knowing I'm not making anything, I'm costing on a daily basis. It's like it kind of hurts.
the only consolation is that it costs so little to live out here.
Yeah.
We got a little afraid where work dried up we didn't know indefinitely. Work dried up and they didn't know when it was coming back, and I'm doing the Trump hands. It's fabulous. But
I'll zoom in on that part.
Anyway, we didn't know when the work was going to return, and I did the numbers, and I'm like, honey, with what's in the bank, we could sit here for another month and a half, trickling out, eating out of our refrigerator, and we could sit here for a month and a half. We don't have to have another job for another month and a half. And she goes, that settled us down a little bit and realized we don't burn a lot of money. We're not staying in hotels every night. If we sit in one place, we're not burning gas, which these things are not great on gas mileage. So the only thing that you were asking me about the balance, the disappointing thing is that we drive through some fantastically cool places sometimes, and we only have 1 or 2 jobs to do there in town, and we're like, and we need to be moving on to get to our next site before sunset. I'm like, this would be really cool to really slow down and see, but we've got to get on to the next thing. So that's a shame sometimes, is that when we do have time to look around, we're not in the best place. I mean, most of the time when we are on a slowdown, we're out in the middle of nowhere in a cornfield.
Yeah, it's kind of convenient, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I kind of look at it as like a way to keep me from spending and buying dumb shit. So it's like, it kind of helps me kind of control my impulses. Because sometimes it's just, when you're waiting out at a rest area long enough, you just get to the point where like, I want to be out of this vehicle. I don't want to be in, or I don't even want to touch this car right now for like a little while.
Yeah, you do need a little while. The nice thing is that you can't overspend too much because you got to pack it in here.
Yes.
And we're already full as it is, so we can't. My kind of rule is don't put anything on unless you take something off.
Yeah.
We just got into mountain bikes,
Mm-hmm.
and that adds more weight to us, and then probably kills my gas mileage a little more. But we've been riding around for the last 2 or 3 days, and it's been really great. So it's been a good hobby. I think we're going to enjoy that investment.
I feel like often you kind of have to balance just like a fun element or something to break the monotony of a daily kind of routine that we follow, right? So, wake up, plan out your route, figure out where we're going, and then get going. Sometimes it's like, go take some bikes, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, honestly, just go take some bikes. We're going to go check out this trail. We're going to go check out this dope river or something, because I feel like sometimes we get a little too wrapped up in it. And I don't like taking breaks either. I feel like whenever I'm on vacation, I'm not on vacation because my mind is still calculating, oh, this is costing me such and such. I could be doing this, and I'm looking out for other jobs constantly. So you having the mountain bikes, I would say, is probably the best improvement. I mean, yeah, it's going to weigh you down a little bit, and that's an interesting thing because it's like you have to sacrifice, a little gas mileage. And I once watched a little TikTok about it earlier, talking about like, I don't want to put too much weight on it. I don't want to run her out too much, because my resale value is going to take the shitter. And it's like, to be honest with you, fuck the resale value.
I've given up on
these
that.
These things are not designed to have gas mileage in mind. So it's
These
like,
are
I
work
often think
vehicles.
about that.
Now, these are work vehicles. We're going to keep this. We're going to end up burning the engine out at 500,000 miles, and we'll put a new engine in.
I can see it happening, man. You take good care of her, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't see anything rusted out. Your
No, we're at
good.
244,000 miles, and it's still going strong. So I've seen people all the time getting 400, 500,000 miles. So we'll do that.
Yeah.
I've driven, before this job, I was doing other contract work where I was recycling x-ray film, and I was driving all over the country, all up and down the east.
Recycling x-ray film.
So we would pull x-ray film out of hospitals. They would have tons of it, and we would fill up these big Gaylord boxes, these big boxes. You know the boxes that they sell pumpkins out of in the grocery stores? Those big boxes.
Okay.
We would fill those things up to the top and overflowing. And one of those will weigh 2,000 pounds.
Really?
I had a cargo van, an old school regular cargo van, and I put it in barrels, big blue 50-gallon barrels. I could fill that cargo van with 4,500 pounds. And then I could hook on a U-Haul trailer and put another 4,000 pounds on. I could drive that cargo van with right at 10,000 pounds. And it's not rated for that at all, but that's what I used to do before this gig. And I enjoyed doing that because I drove all over the place. I would not enjoy being a truck driver because I kind of got off the beaten path. I kind of flew under the radar. I didn't have to stop, and I wasn't regulated or anything. And that was a great job for me, but I was missing my wife. I was missing my family, and that's the only part of being gone all the time.
Yeah.
And I brought my kids every once in a while. I brought Tara with me once or twice, but after going out with me once, they're like, yeah, I'd rather stay home and have fun. So this is a lot more fun that now that the kids are gone and big, grown up, I can bring Tara with me and we can stay out pretty much indefinitely. She needs time to be at home every once in a while, and so I have to kind of listen out for that and plan for that.
Say you two have the worst goddamn day of your work life, right? What is your kind of secret to trying to establish like a harmony? To try to just keep the peace a bit?
Mostly it's...
Or is there anything that you do beforehand to try to prevent it from getting to that point?
Most of it's on my end. I have to, because I can work through a lot. Frustrating day, I overreact and I start lashing out and start cussing and throwing things, and it gets Tara uptight and tense. She rarely is the one that's overreacting, and so I have to be conscious of that. I can work a lot longer and a lot harder, and I have to just be conscious of if she's not feeling it, just take the day off or take half the day or take an early day. I first planned the way I gauged it. I said, you know what? We can make a good living if we can work 6 days on, and then the next week we'll take 3 days off, a 3-day weekend.
Right.
Next week we'll take 6 days. We'll work 6 days and take a 3-day off. That's how we planned it. It doesn't always, it's never worked quite that way.
Yeah, it's never perfect.
But once she mentally thought, okay, there's a break in here somewhere, and because working alongside me, you just don't know when the work is ever going to stop. And so that kind of stresses her out, like, when are we going to stop? So she's used to it now and comfortable, and she's now saying, hey, we can squeeze in one more job before sunset.
Yeah.
It's always pushing to get one more done.
Then you change their mind when they see that bank account going
Yeah,
up.
you get
They're
a
just going to
couple
be
of
like, oh, we can
paychecks.
keep going.
You get a couple of paychecks, you're
Yeah.
like, we need to do that more often.
Yeah.
That'll pay for a lot of grief. So I've given up on work-life balance. There is no work-life balance. You can put it on paper, and that'll help you mentally have a goal to strive for as far as keeping things in check.
Right.
But you're never going to be quite balanced. So you just have to be, as far as the workaholic, I have to be okay to check out and let the money go for a moment while we take a breather and while we recalibrate and be fine. Like getting a hotel. When we need a hotel, don't stress about it. Just get a hotel and take the day off.
Sometimes you deserve it, honestly. I kind of feel that way sometimes. I do it more to treat her.
Usually I
In those kind of
enjoy it a lot
cases?
better after the fact. I'm like, I'm glad we did this.
After you
I didn't
finish
think
a
it was
job,
that big of a
yeah.
deal. I'm like, I didn't think it would be that big of a deal to do, but I'm glad we did this time.
Yeah. Now you guys, like I said, you guys deserve it. You guys work your ass off when you're out on the road. I mean, shit, we don't stop sun up, sun down. We clock out at sundown. And it's like a lot of people don't understand, like, that really takes it out of you.
Yeah, it
especially
does.
when you're in this high heat, it killed us. It literally was killing us to the point where, like, okay, we got 3 done. We had an hour drive between. It was just, we were just like, we're done.
We did
We're
a
done.
couple
We
of them
can't.
in Texas, and the heat, it was 102, and we got like 4 done that day. Tara overheated. She had to go back to the
Oh no.
truck and lay down and cool off. She had overheated, so I finished up the rest of the site. It took us 4 hours to do one site. It was just one little minor stupid thing after another. Either access issue or alarm was going off, or couldn't get this photo, or couldn't find something. There was always something, and it was just miserable. For 4 hours, we were stuck out there in that heat.
Yeah, I've been there, I know. That's so like in those kind of cases when you're really frustrated, I kind of want to know what kind of thoughts go through your head to try to keep calm of the situation, take inventory of what you're dealing with, and then try to pursue
This is better
ways around
than
it.
this is a better work and better paying work than I've ever had. The most frustrating thing about this work is because we're subcontractors, we don't have a manager that we can say, hey, we demand a response. We're subcontractors. They don't have to respond to us, and that is very frustrating. They don't have to give us work. That's scary and mentally scary. Those are the biggest things. The work, being frustrated with the work, that's not been a big deal. Me flying the drone in windy conditions at near 0 degrees, 18 degrees, and 18-mile-an-hour winds, that's scary, that's stressful. I mean, it's so stressful where you're shaking by the time you get done with it.
Or on the top of a rooftop when it's freezing cold, blistering winds. Like
and your equipment's not working right, and nothing's going well. You know, that's
or your
really
phone
frustrating.
storage is full.
You'll have bad weather sometimes. On paper, we said, you know what, if we get 6 done a day, if we do 5 a day, 6 days a week, that's going to make us a great income. And 5 a day is easy. On our work schedule, we have done as many as 10 a day, 12 a day. So 5 a day, 6 a day is not bad at all, and we make a great living. But then you run into weather, you run into access issues, you run into all sorts of hiccups that frustrate that thing.
Attitude too.
But we really have not had a hard time. Like I said, Tara and I have been married long enough and enjoy each other well enough that we know how to back off. When I'm in a bad mood, she knows not to add to it by adding something. You know, you should have done this. She doesn't henpeck me. When she's having a bad mood, I don't bother her. And but it just, we really get along. I remember just recently, she had to stay home she wanted to stay home for another extra few days. I had work that needed to be done, so I took off. Boy, after being with her for an entire year, I was so lonely making that 12-hour drive out to the field and working for the next week without her. I'm like, this is really quiet. There's nobody to talk to.
No matter what music you put on either, it's just like...
just sad.
I think I remember one time I was like so used to her like coming along and everything. I had to make a solo drive like 4 hours north up to Maine because I screwed up on something. And the whole time, I remember I caught myself like saying a joke or something out loud, and I looked to the side and she's not there, and I'm just like, okay.
I know it is. That's
Yeah.
sad. The whole time I was driving.
Yeah. So I think having a partner in this job is incredibly important. I mean, especially when we go through like our emotional roller coasters of situations, which I would like to call, because you get your really lows, you get your really highs, and then you get like okay, and then you're just miserable. You're done. You want to look for just, I don't know, just look for other options or something. But
Yeah, the weather wears on you, and
It does.
Tara's more of let's look for other options. Let's look for other options, and I'm a lot more conservative in let's keep the good thing we got going, and let's just hold on for a little bit longer, and maybe we'll keep going. So
yeah.
So we have both of those to balance. It's a good thing I have her because she is able to look out for other opportunities while we're still maintaining this. Otherwise, we'd have done this for about 3 weeks and been off hopping around doing other
Right.
things.
Mhm.
And if it weren't for her, then I would only be doing this and not looking out for other opportunities.
Yeah,
So
you got to keep looking around.
it's good to have a balance.
I agree. So, I guess on a matter of, because I know you don't drink and all that, so could you explain to me why that is without getting into too much detail, if you're comfortable with?
Yeah, that's
Talking
fine.
about
It's
that?
our religion. We're Mormon. We're members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so part of that is this like code of health. And we abstain from alcohol and tobacco. And I think the whole reason behind it is to that, or anything that's going to control your body, anything that
Can alter your mind.
can alter your decision making more than what you would do. We want to be in control of our decision making. I think that's the reason for it. And it's generally just a good code of health. And it helps you to think of being healthy. So yeah, we don't drink, we don't smoke, we don't have any huge habits like that. We try to keep the Sabbath day holy. We try to not work on Sunday and find a local church, a local congregation that we can visit while we're there. And after the pandemic, Zoom has enabled us to tap in and view our local church at home, so we can
heck
see
yeah.
what's going on at home church too.
Have you had any cool experiences at any of the local churches on your travels around?
It's very
Yeah.
interesting because
I imagine you meet some of the coolest people.
you
too.
do. And what's funny is we go to some congregations, like we were in Washington, D.C., where we met up with you guys last time. They had a huge congregation. It filled up the whole chapel to capacity. And we're
Wow.
like, wow, nobody noticed us sneak in and sneak out. Whereas we went to New Mexico, and when we came into church, there was about 55 other people there and me and Tara. They're like, oh, somebody's new. And so as soon as the meeting was over, they're like, who are you? Are you here have you just moved in? They were very welcoming and open, and they were glad to see somebody new, and we had a great time. People invited us. I don't think we ever took anybody up on that, but they invited us over for dinner. And so it's interesting going through different and visiting different, it's the same religion, and the same lessons and concepts taught at each chapel, but it's just a slightly different group of people, and it's interesting to have that in common, but still see the differences all over the country.
I can imagine so, because like you're moving at such different, radically different parts, like especially nothing but farm fields and
that's mostly
yeah.
what we end up with when we end up on a Sunday. We end up in the middle of a cornfield somewhere, and or in Amish country or something like that. So yeah, it's been interesting.
Heck yeah. No, I imagine so, because it's like, for us, we don't really go to churches and all. We mainly go to breweries and all. And every now and then we find some of the coolest people out there.
Yeah.
Last time we were at a brewery up in Maine, we just got to be friends with everybody at the bar, and it was a great time, man. This guy was talking to me about planting and just
I
just
imagine
like,
it's
yeah.
a similar family feel. Whatever you need to connect, say, with the locals, but with some friendly outside group, it's nice. Tara's a bigger talker with new people than I am. I'm fine being alone or just us for a while, but she enjoys getting out and meeting people for the first time. So, like your brewery, same concept. It's an extended family.
I think what it also is the longing for community. So one
Community
thing
is what
I
that
definitely
is.
notice is as during my travels, I got to see many different types of communities. I mean, whether it's the gun community, whether it's the religious communities, whether it's just people like us, you know, we're our own community if you think about it.
Yeah, we are.
It's just we're very small and tight knit.
But we do keep up with each other as much
Yeah,
as we can.
every now and then. So it's like I think a very important thing for a lot of people is especially community. Like really, you could just find your longing with just about any group of people if you just meet the right people. And I feel like a lot of people out there, in some cases, they meet the wrong people and then they get in with the wrong crowds and
Yeah.
they build like a bit of like a group think, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So there comes a point where it's like community can be dangerous.
That's
which is
interesting.
fascinating.
Isn't that interesting when you visit different parts of the different cities in the state? Like where are we at? San Antonio.
Yeah.
Has a different vibe here. We were kind of laughing.
Such a different vibe.
Yeah, we were laughing at the folks here. We went on a little bike ride on a trail today, and there's a lot of joggers and walkers and bikers.
Nice.
These deer are just standing right next to the walkway as we're breezing by, and we're like, back home, you guys would get shot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
These folks here that are jogging by,
Yeah.
a lot of them never held a gun before, much less hunt, and so
Some
it's
of them are
interesting-
Californians moving over. So.
Yeah. So it's
Go
interesting
figure.
going to different communities. You can tell if you ever go shopping. We don't do a whole lot of shopping, but we've gone to Colorado, and it's a different vibe and feel from a small town where we're from.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
it's
It's a totally different vibe, and the worst vibe I've ever had was in Baltimore. I had a few sites there. That was probably the worst experience I've ever had.
I'm trying to think
it's
where
pretty
we
nuts, man.
were the most awkward. I think it was probably Colorado. It was probably around Denver or something.
Really?
Like that. Yeah.
Okay.
They're very progressive.
Oh, super progressive in there.
Yeah.
From what I've seen with all the large amount of homeless camps, and it's like you're talking a whole line of tents, and then you got apartment buildings literally a block over, and I'm like, everybody's just cool with this. So if I go send my kid out to school and I go walk to the bus or whatever, I can't send them alone. Because
You know what
I'm
was
just
a
saying,
cool-
I'm not saying that they do anything.
Talk about a cool community. We had this little community we rolled into to do one tower out in the middle of Oklahoma, Nebraska. I don't know where we were, somewhere in the Midwest. And we pulled in, and the tower was a fake tree built right next to a little kiddie water park. It was a public park, but now rather than having a public pool, they set up these little water fountains that you can go press. The kids can press a button and it sprays on them. They run in and out of the water. So we're there, and no one's there. It's about this time of day. But then as I set the drone up, kids start coming up, and little kids and
Oh, my
parents come
God.
up. And I'm like, oh no, I'm flying around kids. And I walked over and I said, hey, just letting you know, I'm filming the tower here. I'm not really. I don't have the camera pointed this way. I just didn't want to come across as some creepy guy.
No, of course.
And I'm in
yeah.
my vest and hard hat. And she goes, no, you don't look creepy. And it was a different. And everybody, you could see them interacting with each other when they came out to the park. And it was a small community, a small town feel where everybody looked out for everybody. And they weren't threatened by a stranger as much. They just looked at
A
everybody.
stranger bringing a flying.
Maybe a little naively, but they looked at every stranger as, you're probably a good person too.
Yeah.
And I felt so immediately comfortable with them. And I thought, you know what, if we were to ever move, I like a small town vibe and feel where everybody kind of looks out for each other.
Well, I think honestly, on another thing too is you got to give yourself more credit. In my opinion, you come off as a very very personable, very nice kind of person to approach. Gonna be honest with you.
Okay.
Because it's like you have like an aura about you. You know, not getting all weird about it, but you have a very respectable approach. So
Okay.
it's like that's very good, and it's like I think an important thing about this job is you got to have that. You got to have a charm. You really do, because it's like, man, we get away with so much shit because of our charm. It's like you ask a certain way, hey, can I please work on this, such as this, enter this property at this time, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we don't really do this, but okay.
Yeah.
But it's like,
how
you
many
got to
times have
approach
you-
it super nice.
How many times have you gotten onto a rooftop that you didn't technically have you didn't have all the things ready for you to get up there, Like they say, the notes will tell us sometimes access issues are you're going to have to contact this person and have 24 hours or 2 days in advance
48-hour
notice.
advance notice. Yeah.
And half the time you just show up, more than half the time you just show up and say, hey, just wondering if we can get on the thing. And if you look official, if you're presentable, and if you're nice enough, you go, you know what, we're not supposed to do that, but if it's only going to take less than an hour, come on, let's go ahead and get it done.
As long as you're professional about it, they know that, you know, you're just trying to do a job. And in some cases that can actually get very frustrating because it's like some people are just stopping you from doing said job.
Right. This would be so much easier. And technically, I can tell you, like, you can't fly here. Yeah.
Okay, man. Let me go call my boys at the FAA or something.
Yeah, I can.
Sure.
I've had a couple of instances where he said, you're not allowed to fly here. And I had to, some people.
Did you ask him who he was?
He was the manager of, it was a wheat granary. He says, you're not allowed to fly here. This is and he knew more about drones than I did, obviously. Mm-hmm. And you're not allowed to fly here. And I said, yeah, we can. And I said, and I showed him the steps that I had already done to clear. And because of my Part 107 clearance, Part 107 commercial license, I'm allowed to fly at a certain height. And so you throw out a little bit of more information that he may not know about, then he's okay with it. But it was funny. Some people you run into, you can tell, if I want to get on this rooftop, if I want to get access to this area, I better not get in a pissing contest with this person. Because even though I'm right, I'm not going to get anywhere with this.
You're right.
With
You're
this
absolutely
guy.
right. Yeah, but like I said, your charm works very, very good. Yeah. It's a funny way to put it because I don't know how else to describe it. It's like, I once thought about it because I was like, this lady had no reason at all to let us up there, let us do our thing, and then it's just like she was the nicest person ever.
I've been in retail a long time, and that it's just something that naturally comes to me is in talking to customers, irate customers. It became not a game, but an enjoyment to take my most irate, off the unhinged customers and end up turning them into my best friends. Mm-hmm. They would, by the time we got it all finished, they were good friends of mine, which was sometimes not a good thing. I didn't want to deal with them that much, but you can talk people down a lot. You can talk them. Your tone of voice, everything has to do with your body language and your tone of voice. Like, hey, easy, we don't have to. And I'm all about choices too. Well, you can't do this, you have to have it. Well, we have two choices. We can either do this or do this. It's up to you.
We can escalate this. But, wow, interesting. So, how would you...
Oh, that was something
What is your kind of outlook on the current situation with, like, the economy, housing market,
I listen to a lot of news. I listen to a lot of podcasts. Listen to a lot of projections. And at the end of the day, nobody really knows. And if you look back on your history the last few years, we always wring our hands that we're going to hell in a handbasket and things are going downhill. In the next 2 weeks, the whole world is going to blow up. And historically, that's really not happened. We've made it through COVID. We've made it through these things. We've made it through, what is it? Not depressions, but recessions. We've made it through these things, and I have to always remind myself not to get too anxious that we'll probably make it through these things. Because if you're always looking for the end to come in the next 2 weeks, you don't look for more opportunities. You think, we're screwed. We better just hunker down and hoard our stuff and go back home and hunker down and wait for the end to come. But historically, it's just not happened. We've always found a way to work through it. It's sad to see taxes and everything else take advantage of our hard work, and that takes the wind out of you. But I just try to keep an optimistic look, thinking, you know what, it's never quite as bad as I always imagine it to be. So keep working, keep your head down, keep going, and it'll be fine. So I have to keep reminding myself of that. As far as outlook, I was thinking of a good thing, like where do I see myself in the next 5 years? How long do I plan on doing this? Is kind of part of that. And I would like to do this. Like I said, a workaholic. I could keep working until I'm 70. Tara doesn't want to work that long. But if we could keep doing this for another 2 to 5 years, now being 50 come February, I'll be 50. I'm looking
The
at
50s club.
I'm looking at retirement. We don't have anything saved for retirement. We don't.
know.
We're out of debt pretty much. We have a few more payments on this, but other than that, our house is paid for, and we have no real debt. So we're now trying to, sock away as much money as we can, and it takes a lot of money to retire. So I'm going to try to get $300, $500, $1 million in the next 5 years. That's my projection, is to have enough for retirement in the next few years. And then ideally, so work really hard 6 days a week for the next 2 years. And what ideally would be nice is to be able to go out on a project for 2 weeks, stay home for 3 weeks. Go out for 2 or 3 weeks, stay home for a month. That's what I would like to do.
Yeah. Another one of our friends does that. So,
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I could totally see that being a thing. Because we too thought about it, because I didn't want to keep her, tucked in the truck for too long, because I understand, they get a little claustrophobic.
Women are wired differently too. They want to build a home and a house and family and
I think that's one of the most beautiful things ever too, man. Especially when it's like, when you see them have like such a keen interest on all those particulars, all those things that we don't think twice about, such comforts and all this other stuff. But then when you come home to that beautiful home that they work their ass off to set up for you and the whole family, I think that's amazing.
Yeah, so, and it's not.
We got to give the ladies credit where it's due.
Right, and it's not laziness on their part. Like, I don't want to go out. Yeah. It's that they want to build that nest. They want to be a mom. And even though our kids are older, we've got a 19-year-old at home, he still needs a mom. Our married kids call us. We have one kid calling us every day, every single day. Sometimes 3 of the kids will call us all in one day. And we have to still be parents and advisors to our kids, and we have to be available. That's ideally too what I'd like to do in the next 2 years. We're starting to get grandkids. Now that we've got 2 married kids, we've got 1 grandkid already. And that is going to be so fun. Can you imagine having one of these 4-wheel drive vans that's built out as an RV and taking a couple of the grandkids with you? And then maybe we only get 2 or 3 sites done a day, bringing the kids along to camp with us. Yeah, that's what I look forward to.
I think it's so important too to teach them about nature and living out in the outdoors. That usually going to these towers is honestly one of the best options I've experienced so far.
Yeah,
because like you go on top of mountainscapes. I mean, shit, ski resorts, dude. Those are the coolest ones.
Well, that's
so
why
far.
we bring the 360 camera along. What I do is I've got this 360 camera. I just simply turn it on and walk out there with the selfie pole and look around, turn it off and put it back up, and I can put together a clip and reposition it wherever I'd like it to angle. And that's been a very good thing to capture on the fly.
We've long debated it, because I was gonna make a swivel arm mount for just to mount that up there, just so I can get a nice perspective of everything. I've been meaning to do it, but just waiting for more work to come around, but it's coming. Let's
see, I don't have my phone. Let's see if we got any more work. So what else are you thinking? What else would you like to know about me? I'm not that terribly interesting. I just have people. Here's the other thing too. When you go home or whenever you talk to friends or friends of the family, they're like, "Oh, you have the coolest job. You get to go fly your drone and play with toys.
You technically,
and drive all over the place."
We just get paid to fly toys.
They do. Everybody thinks, "Oh, you have the coolest job." And I have to remind them, and I don't poo-poo it too bad. I don't want to kill their ideal of what we do. And I said, it's a job. It has its own frustrations and its own fun things, but it's still a job.
Yeah.
And when you get really, really frustrated, it's just a job, and you have to deal with those frustrations.
Yeah.
But it's so funny what everybody thinks we just have the coolest job. We get to play with toys and go
around
places.
Random dangerous places, hang off the side of buildings and shit. Yeah, fun times. Well, I guess one thing I would like to especially talk about is so we've talked about community building and how important it is. Usually what I notice for a lot of people, because of the harder times that are coming with this economy, the situation, and our current vice, our current former vice president. What is your kind of overall forgive me. We'll just
Overall outlook for government, or what?
I suppose, yeah.
We are. I am very political. You and I haven't talked politically much. I think we're all on the same vein as that. I'm very constitutional. I'm very this. When Trump was elected, was an interesting achievement, because my whole family, we definitely lean more Republican, more conservative. We're clean-cut, church-going people, and this crass Trump guy came on grabbing people, and just a lewd, crass guy. And we hadn't seen what he would accomplish. We just heard his blustering, blowhard, big talk, and we're like, oh man, I don't know. He sure talks a good game of what he'll do, but he's not proven. But the thing that was going for him is that he wasn't a politician, and he didn't pussyfoot around. He didn't seem like the kind of person that just told you what you wanted to hear. I was so happy when he was elected, and to actually see what he got accomplished, especially internationally. I feel like we're taking the short end of the stick for no good reason. We have the most productive economy, and we're just taking it from everybody else, like we're somebody else's redheaded stepchild. And I just like, this is no way to act. And so he just sauntered on the world stage and said, you know what, this is what we'll do and this is what we'll not do. And I was so pleased to see that he was not pressured to, oh, you need to be nicer. You don't need to, have this kind of bathroom talk, this toilet talk.
Political correctness.
Right,
yeah.
And that I enjoy. And I know he's a blowhard. I know he talks.
He has many faults.
Yeah. He does, and I don't agree with everything he's done. Absolutely, He's done some things. I think the biggest faults I see him is he does real good at firing people. Has no problem firing. But he does a terrible job hiring.
I agree. Yeah.
And the other big fault is he can never admit that he did something wrong. He started COVID. He jumped in there and wanted to appear as the big leader, but he's the one that got the ball rolling for the lockdowns. Even though he didn't initially do the lockdowns, we didn't know anything about it. And the closest he'll come to an apology, I just saw on an interview, is he said, well, nobody knew what was going on, and I did the most for keeping the economy going. But no, we should have sheltered our weak, our old people, and the rest of the economy should have just kept pushing forward.
New York sure did. They sure did it with a bunch of other positive COVID patients.
They did. So. I think we should have sheltered those who feel vulnerable, but let the rest of the economy, let us take our risks, because this is going to run through everybody, and sure enough, it did. And I think that was his biggest fault. And the thing is you'll never hear him apologize. If he would say, hey, I got duped. I hired the wrong people. I listened to the wrong influence and made the wrong decisions, we would all forgive him of that and say, yeah, let's move on now. I won't get duped again.
The problem is that for a lot of people, they just won't forgive. One thing I'll notice, because it's like when you apologize, that means you admit to fucking up.
The thing is
is that you carry the responsibility of the whole operation, which is like, yes, you are the president. I would say you're one of the heads that handled the whole situation, which I don't believe he handled it appropriately. I don't think many other governors and many other senators and everybody in general, even the CDC handled it,
I don't
in its way.
He didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. And I don't think I would have handled it much different than he did, because you're getting all this advice that you need to do this or you're going to be the cause of the next world pandemic. And he didn't know. He made the best judgment he could with the information he had. I wouldn't have locked us all down. Or allowed us to be locked down the way we were.
Yeah, the lockdown is, once you give them that power, they'll never surrender that.
No.
I mean, at some point, whatever they can do to subjugate us as a people,
but I think
they're going to do it.
I think he's our best option next time too.
Yeah.
I mean, you have what's his name, Swami.
Oh yeah, he's interesting.
He talks a good game, but I don't trust him yet.
Me neither.
Because he tells us exactly everything
What we want to hear.
that the far right want to hear, even more so than Trump. And he doesn't have a proven track record, so maybe.
So what do you think about him abolishing the Department of Education?
Fine.
Yeah, me too.
That is good for nothing. We homeschooled our kids most of the time anyway. Anytime we had kids in school, this was before the whole inclusivity of everything. School is now teaching morals, and they should stay out of that.
Yeah, I think
they
so
should
too.
teach, arithmetic and
well, they need to teach you facts
and
first
science,
off.
and
Facts.
now they're teaching you morals. And if you don't go along with this, I mean, we're seeing the canary in the coal mine in California and other places that if you don't go along with that, then you can. And talk about community. It's so interesting. We have family in Colorado and very progressive, and she came from a very conservative family, and her family has all bought into the idea that everybody's gender is on a spectrum one way or the other. And the thing is that here's what I've found by visiting them a couple of times. As I told Tara, I says, my wife, they're doing this and they truly believe they're being the most kind people in the world. They're trying to be loving. They're trying to be accepting of everybody.
I think what it is, it's they want to be most virtuous, or seen as virtuous, or perceived as virtuous, because virtue to them is like, they always want to virtue signal us, for example, you don't defend this organization, well, you hate trans people, you're transphobic. I ain't fucking transphobic. I'm not scared of no goddamn tranny or whatnot. I couldn't care less.
Yeah,
you do whatever the fuck you want.
You do you. And as long as you don't try to tell me what to do, we're fine.
Yeah,
I
at
can
the
sit
end of the
down
day,
with you.
Don't fuck with my speech. At the end of the day, don't fuck with it.
And so if you bring children especially up with this perspective that the rest of the world is going to look down on you because you're different, then they're going to look, you look at everything as coming against you, just like racism and anything else. If you've always been told that you're going to be at a disadvantage, then you're going to...
you're always going to be in that disadvantage. You're always going to think that, yeah.
You're always going to say, well, this is happening because I'm disadvantaged. This is happening because I don't have this perspective. And I wasn't raised that way. My parents were strict and tough on me, and I figured, you know what, if I'm only half as strict on my kids, because they're like, Dad, you're too strict. I'm like, look, I'm not half as bad as my parents were. We turned out just fine. You'll be just fine.
Right.
So I taught my kids to have a thick skin. My parents taught me to have a thick skin. Live and let live. People do what they're going to do. You can't make anybody be good. Has always been the philosophy I've grown up with. And as long as you feel that and understand that, you're not worried about other people so much. They're going to do their thing. But this whole new virtual signal that everybody has to bow at the altar of
you have to show
virtue.
Your badge of being a good person.
Yeah.
That's it. Of what their ideal
that
person
worries
is.
me a lot, but
it sounds Orwellian. The whole thing is like we're living right now in the Orwellian period.
I think
it's insane.
it's heartening to see that a few people are waking up and going, this will not happen here.
I think so. Yeah, I think some people are finally awakening to the bullshit.
I give it another 10 years. When these teenagers that were allowed to transition and mutilate their bodies with their parents' permission and their doctors' pressing, they will sue their parents and their doctors.
Well, in most cases they can't.
Well, they
sign away a lot of those,
I bet they will.
Whatever documents, I'm sure they cooked up. I mean,
they've already had some lawsuits where a young lady, now she's in her 20s, is suing her doctor because she was 14 when they convinced her, you must be trans. That's why you're so unhappy. No, you're just a stupid teenager. That's why you're unhappy.
You don't know any better. You don't know any better. I think it's very important when it comes to community. Now that we keep bringing it back to that. Since like the early days, when you were part of the tribe or whatnot, you would need to be accepted if you were part of the dance and the songs and everything else, and whatever rituals or traditions that was happening then shaped you in that way. They shaped themselves to some of them shaped themselves to become a warrior culture where you are valued, as a man or as a woman according to whatever you were, you know, born as.
It is interesting
'Cause
that we
it's
have to
insane
have
to
that
try to change
extended,
that.
extended community.
Yeah.
And that's part of what shapes us, that extended community. That's the morals we borrow until we form our own. But
Yeah, we absorb so fucking much, and a lot of people don't realize that. Like, I remember one time I had an interaction with my niece. She's the coolest little kid ever, man. She's awesome. I'm very sarcastic. Sometimes, you know, I'll mess around and I'll say something, and I caught her doing it back to me. And I just look back at that. I'm like, you just copied me. Like, attitude, sass, tone, everything. And I was like, oh my God.
You notice this when you marry.
Yeah.
You don't just marry the girl, you marry her whole family too.
Oh yeah.
And Tara's family did not joke the way we do. Our family has a very sharp humor. We're very quick-witted. And we don't do it to be mean, but it's our form of entertainment. We sit around and jab at each other just a little bit, not cruelly, but just a little bit. And so my daughter and my kids are that way too. They're very quick-witted, very sharp like that. Some of mine are. And it's funny. Tara's kind of borrowed that humor now too a bit. But it's interesting. When you marry somebody, you kind of get that. You see that.
You kind of like
family
almost like infect them all, you know?
Infect them, or they infect you.
Yeah.
You kind of borrow some of their traits.
Yeah, I think so too, because it's like some of the shit I catch myself saying is just like, God damn it, I get it. I hang around this woman too much.
Yeah, you do.
But I honestly love that, and family, community, and everything, just so goddamn critical, I think. And it's so downplayed because a lot of people want to align themselves to bullshit communities because they get immediate affirmation. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
I think that's a big...
We long for that. We do.
Yeah, we long
community.
for this bullshit
That's
affirmation.
why people are members of gangs.
Yes.
That's why people are members of cults. Whenever you absorb into a community, you just can't lose your independent thinking either.
Yes.
That's why I'm not a
Group
big fan. Well, even Republican, Democrat. I think even just recently, I think your generation and younger have finally been part of this waking up and realizing you can't just assign yourself Democrat and think you're all good, or assign yourself Republican. I really got into politics when I was in my early 20s, and I thought, listening to all Rush Limbaugh and everyone else on the right, you look at everybody else that's left-leaning as being all off their rocker. In some aspects they are. But you look at everybody as wrong, as absolutely wrong. But having good friends that are on the left, you realize they have good intentions. It's just the process to do it. And I believe it takes both kinds to work some balance into our economics, into our politics. Because if it weren't for the kind-heartedness on the left, then we wouldn't allow for any aid or anything. And I'm like I said, I'm very, very conservative. Like, be self-sufficient. Look out for yourself. I'll help you until I'm blue in the face, teach you how to till a garden, but I'm not going to give you food. I will help you learn something, do something, fend for yourself, but I will not provide for you. That's how I was raised. That's what I feel is important. But just becoming, like I said, the bad aspect of being a Republican, you go along with everything else that goes along with that. And we realized that in the Bush era and all of that, we were duped into going to war with people we had no problems with. Why were we off doing that? But you couldn't say anything against it because, what, you don't support the troops? The troops have nothing to do with this. They're doing their job.
They changed the whole narrative, and then they
that's
periodically
how we
kept
get
changing
duped on the right, going to war.
Yep.
And this whole Ukrainian thing, I've got a...
Now, it's funny that it's the left doing it.
I've got a very conservative
switch.
daughter, and she got, as soon as this Ukrainian thing cropped up, I'm like, something doesn't smell right here. First 2 weeks of it, I'm like, I feel like we're getting duped here again.
Yep.
Sure enough. And she was like, no, there's people dying. I said, I'm sure there are. And these poor SOBs are just getting mowed down, and all we're doing is trickling in just enough money to mow down some more.
Not some money.
I
You know, we're
believe-
almost at the point that we are
That's crazy.
exceeding our budget for Afghanistan.
That makes me. I'm so glad.
A 20-year
to see,
war.
I'm glad to see so many people are willing to defund the government.
Or the police.
Shut down the government. No, I don't want to defund the police or government, really.
No, I'm just saying some people wanted to.
But I don't mind shutting down the government for a few days just to put a break on these aid packages. We got another, I don't know, tens of billions of dollars going again to another package. This is never ending. And I'm glad to see some light being shed on Ukraine just being the hotbed of everybody getting their little slimy fingers in there, doing backroom deals. That's all Ukraine has ever been. If you ever see a history of Ukraine, they have always been manipulated by every country.
Oh yeah, I mean look at their former president and who ousted them. So
Yeah, all back and forth.
Yeah.
Great history of that. But yeah, I don't think, and like I said, I have a daughter who feels like we should help the Ukrainians. But you're being duped into feeling bad that we should go in and give them all of our money. Our taxes are being raised to no end because we're feeding inefficient money that's not solving their problem.
yes, yeah. I think it's escalated. What are your thoughts on what we should do about Ukraine then?
They are willing to negotiate, and they have been willing to negotiate.
The Russians, you
The
mean?
Russians have been willing to negotiate from day one. We sabotaged our negotiations on purpose because that did not make us money. Come to find out now, years later now, we come to find out that we had negotiations set up to go and negotiate this thing. It would have been a land thing, and if you understand the history of Ukraine, you understand that half that country was Russian to begin with anyway. And those people...
It was former Soviet Union.
Yeah,
so
most of those people are Russian. And I believe Trump that he could negotiate. That's the biggest thing. If he could do nothing else, negotiate in a week, he could negotiate a settlement to this thing, and we'd be
I
out
think
of
so
it.
too.
But
It's going to come down to
for
giving them
anybody.
Crimea.
I think that's why, Putin and Russia are no Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell my daughter. I understand. She goes, well, he's crazy. No, he's not crazy. A crazy man would blunder all of this. He's not crazy. But like I said, he's no Boy Scout, but he is willing to negotiate. He's seeing his border countries he was promised that NATO would not come any further. Now that they are, he's going, this is bull crap. I'm going to act before I get acted upon. That's all he's done.
I think also people don't realize how close Moscow is. Like if you look on the map, it's like,
No, I didn't realize that either.
We're trying to put those there, and it's like, oh, okay.
You know what the real
No wonder
reason?
they're pissed.
We keep making Russia and China out to be the boogeyman. They do have different politics and ways of going about it, but they want to make money too. And we make them out to be the boogeyman. We always have to have somebody to hate so we can have this perpetual war going on. But I think Trump, that's what he did best, is he could negotiate with them and say, look, we all want to make money here. Let's work out something that we can all stay friends. He doesn't want to fire the nuclear weapons or start the next world war. And I like
What
to
I do
see,
like is his conviction to be able to use it if the time comes, if necessary.
I like to see...
'Cause, like the pussyfooting that's been going around, it's like, it's very polarizing, man.
That's the thing too, is they know that he will not hesitate. You don't doubt that. Don't get in a pissing contest with him. He will come out on top, and that's what scares. I think even
He's very
other world leaders is he will not. If he says he's going to do something, he will do it. So you.
I'm most curious on what he'll do with the whole North Korea situation, because the leader just recently met with Putin.
Yeah.
Not too recent. I think it was a couple weeks ago.
And we're pushing these people together.
Yeah.
We're pushing them to be bigger allies. That's what I was getting to, is Putin and China and North Korea, they're on the outside. They're not part of this whole world. They won't join the club. We want them to be part of this world organization. Like, come on, if you be a part of this and be part of the World Bank and you play right, then you'll have your part of the action too. And Putin's like, no, we want to be independent. We don't want any part of this,
we have to also, complain about world banks and then world government, single government theory and all that.
I think that's
stuff.
what the single world government is more against. Is they're like, they want to pull Russia and China in line with everybody else. So, because the way it's been going with the deep state is you scratch my back, I scratch yours. Republicans and Democrats have been playing for the same side, really. They're just two different labels on the same people.
Yeah, I think so too, because they've been
I think there's just
letting
as
too
many,
much shit slide lately. It's
there's
just, I don't understand.
There's just as many deep states on the right as there were the left.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that by having them concentrate on creating like two principal like sides, it gives you like, oh, I paint myself red, I paint myself blue. And if you're blue, then I don't want to be with you.
Yeah.
Some people are like, oh, better dead than red. So it's like, who knows? Well, definitely, you know, communist red, better dead than red. So fuck that shit. Yeah, that's very interesting, because it's like, you look at the situation with Crimea as well. It's like you got to wonder what they're going to give up in terms of these negotiations.
Mentioning not Crimea, but mentioning communism, you can see how communism would be so appealing, especially to young people.
Yeah, you know, I fail to understand that.
Okay, the way they...
That's the thing. No, I'm just saying, as me as a younger individual, I mean, I understand why they fall for it. What I don't understand is how people of my age fell for it. That's what I don't understand, because it's so fucking bizarre that you can't look back even a couple of pages of history and not see where this trend leads to. You don't need to see any other greater examples than Venezuela, Cuba, Russia. Like, Jesus Christ, man. It just, it doesn't make any sense.
Right. You can
a lot of people running around with Che Guevara shirts and shit. It's like, you didn't know that asshole.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, he didn't know that fucking asshole. He was an execution. You know, guy.
Starving his people, and all of them have blood on their hands. And like I said, not that our republic is clean from any of that.
We're not sparkling.
We have, you know,
especially
CIA,
Guatemala. I mean, all that shit. Like, who took down, you know, Che Guevara?
Yeah, we have organizations that do some dirty stuff.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of really vetting out and thoroughly flushing out all those bad organizations.
Yeah, you know, honestly, that would be, I think we're at the point where we are too large of government, and we need to trim a lot of the fat at this point, because it's gotten to the point where, somebody pointed this out once. I was watching a Joe Rogan podcast about it, and then somebody said, like, our government's been the largest government ever in the entire planet, and I'm like, holy shit, he's right. If you think about the amount of agents in, like, you know, all sorts of different organizations, 3-letter organizations that have their own power and capability to literally shut down people.
Yeah.
To kill their livelihood, to shut down their you know, their message.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're able to just kill it and squash it and then squander it as much as possible. And it's gotten to the point where it's very frustrating as like a creator. You know, I like to create cool shit. I make, you know, videos and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, like, everywhere I go and every turn that I make, it's all my shit's demonetized. All my shit, you know, they won't let me. They won't promote my posts. People won't only friends see you.
It's amazing how they've taken over the big, what do you call it? Silicon
social
Valley.
Media.
The big social medias are self-policing now. The government doesn't have to do it, because you can't really get your word out that far.
Yeah.
Can't talk about anything controversial. Talk about education. I think it's incredible that we've taken these supposed to be open-minded young people to take every angle of the argument and sort through it. Now they're being taught, no, that's not inclusive. That's, I don't know what the word is, but...
it's whatever bullshit they want to come with, whatever labels they want to add to.
They're not
because they're trying to change language. They've been trying to.
They're not able to handle a difference of opinion.
Yeah.
And that's a shame, that college kids are not trained to endure a
who you would
opinion.
think would be the best and brightest. It's like, clearly our Department of Education has fucking failed us.
That's clearly how you control us. If you can control us to not even entertain an outside thought. COVID was a big red flag in that. Even where we went to church, we have a lot. It was surprising to me. Church generally leans a lot more conservative. Surprising to me how many people were just clutching their pearls that, oh no, the COVID cooties are going to get on me, and don't come without your masks. And if you are sick, you know, I understand staying home if you're sick, but man, they were so afraid and so in line real quickly with all the government suggestions and compulsions that we had to shut everything down. And I think, man, this should be the last place that we should be shutting down, is a church congregation where we need to get together.
I mean, early footage of that shit was showing people just dropping in the street.
You're right. And that's
so
what
a lot
Trump
of people,
said.
even myself, was like, oh shit, this is serious.
Yeah, you've
This
seen
is serious.
movies that,
Yeah, shit gets out of hand,
portray that
plagues
sort
happen.
of thing. And that's what Trump was saying, body bags. And he's like, oh, we better do something.
I read an interesting article about how they say they could have, like, as many deaths attributed to the Black Death and shit. They said that had they had like antibodies or whatnot, they could have treated like over half of the population and prevented them from dying.
Wow.
I forget where I heard that.
believe
I'm
it.
probably, misquoting the shit out of it, but it's like, when I heard that, I was just thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, our medical advances have gotten to places that now we're talking about like changing people's body parts and shit, but the science ain't fucking there yet. You
No.
still don't, it doesn't work. I'm sorry. It'll never work.
Right.
And if we're gonna keep on running this bullshit lie and fallacy that we can change this thing, it's like, you're out of your mind, and not only that, you're hanging with the wrong community. I think so, because it's like, when it
what's
comes to powerful
interesting?
communities, it's like, we have to run with what works traditionally, You also have to go a little bit out of the bounds sometimes, but that comes bracing against tradition, So it's like it's got to go through its trials. It's got to go through its paces. It's got to go through its difficulties.
Yeah.
So that way it's not widely accepted. You know what I mean? It's like some people accept it, and then over time more people will. It's got to earn its place.
Yes. That's
it has to earn its place. And so when it comes to these other bullshit communities, I feel like they just remove that. They completely remove that. And it's like, I wonder if it's no longer a community. I wonder if it's some other definition at that point, because
it's almost
it's
dogma.
a cult.
It's dogma. It's you better
dogma.
Yeah, you go along with what is. This has been the recommendation, so this is what you have to do. And man, we've just played right into that. We've just allowed ourselves to believe and don't question anything. And it's interesting. I was just thinking about this. How many people do you run into when you go to the bar and you drink with somebody? How many conservatives do you run into that are the old school deep state? I won't say deep state, but regular Republicans that we used to have even 15 years ago, as opposed to the more extreme far right Ron Paul kind of Republicans who are questioning really anything, everything. It is heartening to know that more people I run into seem to be far right as far as just suspicious of government, which I think you should always have a healthy suspicion.
Oh, hell yeah.
I don't owe them anything.
How weird is it that the left switched from that? It's like before they were like, oh, we're anti-corporatism, we're anti-big company.
We get along with far left who question government, who are the classic liberals.
Formerly question government.
Those are classic liberals you get along with more than you do, because they're anti-war.
Yep.
They're anti-war and they question government. That's always good. That's not a bad thing. And that's what's been formed into our minds over this last COVID thing, is you're bad if you question government. It's so crazy that you see primetime late night shows falling right in step and doing sing-alongs.
They're all funded by who. So.
Yeah.
And it's so bizarre that like people don't realize that at this point, and they just keep following along with this bullshit narrative. But a lot less people are getting,
that's what's
getting the whatever
that's what's
you want to call
hopeful
it.
is to see that there are more people
There's resistance
waking up that were normal people that are just like, I don't know this time. So I hope that they can't pull off a lockdown.
COVID 2.0?
Yeah,
I dare them.
I don't think they could.
Yeah, they couldn't pull it off.
Because you duped me with the first time. I'll be danged if you're going to do it again.
Yeah. Well, at that point, it's like, hey, let's abolish the CDC at that point. But just kidding. That's that's the other frustrating fucking thing about it. Say if you were to abolish the CDC, it's like you leave yourself to, ruining so many different projects, so many different things that behind the scenes we have zero concept of.
Right.
That they're working on. It's like you shut that down, it's like chaos.
Well,
it's like, do we do it or do we not? But it's also like...
It's not that easy.
It's not that easy.
You are not pumping millions as a, what do you call it? Not influencer, as a lobbyist. A lobbyist is pumping millions into the CDC, into the CIA, into the other organizations to make things change. and they make us feel like we have a vote or we have some chance of shutting down or doing something. But in reality, we don't. If Trump gets in office, he is still not king.
Yeah,
he
he's
still
not.
can't do as
Still
much
has a lot
as
of
we.
battles. Yeah.
He still can't do. He doesn't have the power. A president doesn't have the power to do as much as we can. And we lose sight that our fight is more influential at the local level than it is at the presidential level. We follow federal politics a lot more because there's more drama, but really you have less to do with that federal politics as you do with your local politics and your state politics, and that's where bigger changes happen. And we see more of that with Roe v. Wade in different states, with our gun rights, things like that. Have you heard about like part of Idaho seceding part of Washington seceding over to Idaho?
What?
Yes.
Yo.
So they have been working on this for years
that's
now,
amazing.
and they have had a referendum, a vote on it, and most of the counties, it would leave Washington over to themselves. It would leave the major city. What's Washington? What's the major city there? It leaves that major city or two to themselves.
It's not Memphis.
About 30% of the state would be their own state, about the size of
Seattle?
New Hampshire, Seattle.
Seattle, Washington.
And the rest of it, which is all farming community, which have the same values as Greater Idaho. They would call themselves Greater Idaho. And
dude, if they do that, that would be so epic.
What a
Greater
cool trend!
Idaho.
What a cool trend, because we see that in Georgia, where most of the outlying rural area is very conservative, but just that center part.
I noticed that, especially when we were working around a lot of parts of Georgia.
Oh yeah.
So it's like when we went to like Martin, or
North Georgia, then, up in the hills.
Yeah, and then west of Atlanta, like far west of Atlanta.
Yeah, that was the
and we were doing a bunch of sites around there, and it's just like, man, it was so nice out here. You go to Atlanta and it's just like, oh, this is a shithole.
Well,
it drives me nuts.
Something to kind of keep in mind there too, just north of Atlanta, that was the last holdout of KKK.
That's right.
Yeah.
I did not know that. Right between Tennessee?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Last and this is in the 80s. They had a stronghold, I didn't realize, north and south. Tara grew up in that area, and she knew people. It doesn't go that far back. My grandfather was entertaining the idea of, he went to a couple of their meetings. He thought, nah, these guys are too far off. He was, and what's funny, he was Democrat.
Really?
Old school Democrat, was more racial, more racist than any Republicans. Back then, businessmen were Republicans and rural communities were all Democrat. It's flipped, and you've heard of that and all. But it's interesting how little you have to go back to realize we have family pictures of workers on the farm who stayed on after not reparations, but after Reconstruction and all that, after the slaves were freed. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't go that far back. I would say it's a sensitive thing, but most people, I grew up not really knowing. I grew up with in the South with the rebel flag and the Dukes of Hazzard, never relating that to racism. Mm-hmm. I was an older teenager, a young man, when they started coming in wanting to change the Georgia state flag, saying that's racist. I'm like, how? You could say it's Dukes of Hazzard. That's the only thing. I never knew anything about really. Some people
call it heritage. Some people call it the rallying flag, and it's all sorts of bullshit, man. It's hard. People don't even know the actual meaning of what a redneck actually is, and it's just like it's so fucking funny.
Yeah, it's funny how, like you said, not definitions, but language is changing. And it's interesting how the language and the definition of, say, even like decimate or any other word doesn't mean...
Or how about homeless? Now it's unhoused.
Yeah.
They keep changing the word. They just want to keep making it so it's desensitizing people, I guess.
But being able to change the language, that's another tool in the socialists' quiver.
So, I guess I'll ask you this final question then. How do we get out of this? How do we fix this?
you just be a good person and influence people. You can't go all in when you're having a talk at the bar. but you can influence people to, I think that's what we've done over this COVID experience, as more and more people have woken up to, because me and Tara have been very conservative for a long time. We even were members of the John Birch Society. Look that up. That was a very conservative kind of suspect government for a long time. They believed in a deep state for a long time. You were whack jobs for thinking that, and you always had your like crazy uncle that thought the moon landing wasn't real, or the Earth was flat. Now you're realizing that some of those people, some of those things are whacked out, but a lot of those people, they have something like this whole. Alex Jones was right on a lot of things, as crazy as he sounded.
He's wrong about a lot of things too.
He is. But you can't throw away the baby with the bathwater. And so it's good to see that people are a little more comfortable embracing conspiracy theories, because these conspiracy theories have some level of truth. It's interesting to see people like Joe Rogan being okay interviewing people who are far right and things like that. How can we help other people? Just not being so threatened, having boundaries, being able to put your foot down. When you have a family, you'll realize this. You're going to have kids that are indoctrinated by social media, saying having political conversations with your close family will help them see things from another point of view, and be suspicious of.
That's how they indoctrinate a whole bunch of them.
Be suspicious of everything. Don't take everything at face value. Don't take it just because this is what's been recommended. Do your own research, and if we can influence people to do their own research and be more comfortable with being influenced or entertaining other ideas and making their own decisions, being comfortable with people making their own decisions, I think will change more people. And it's good to see that we are, that more people are opening up their ideals.
Well, fuck yeah, Paul.
Well, thanks.
It's good seeing you around.
Been a good 3-hour talk.
Yeah, I hope to catch you around sometime. Shit. And yeah, stay tuned, guys.